"I want her," the Korean boss said softly, and in that quiet hospital room, power shifted, fate turned, and a dangerous man faced the first truth that money and fear had never been able to give him. The machines around the hospital bed kept a steady rhythm as doctors rushed past the open door, their faces tight with urgency. Kong Min-jae stood frozen at his mother's side, his tailored black coat hanging heavy on his shoulders, his eyes locked on her pale face. A moment ago, alarms had drawn nurses running, hands had moved fast, words had flown that carried weight and risk. His mother's life had balanced on a thin edge, and for the first time in decades, the man feared losing something he could not replace. Then the nurse stepped in. She moved without panic, her hands calm, her voice low, her presence steady. The room softened the moment she arrived. Her eyes focused on the patient, not on the men in dark suits lining the wall. She adjusted the blanket, checked the monitor, and spoke to Kong Min-jae's mother, as if the world outside the room did not exist. Kong Min-jae watched her closely. He did not see fear. He did not see greed. He saw care that did not change based on status. His mother's breathing slowed. That was when the words left his mouth, spoken not to impress, not to threaten, but almost like a confession. He wanted her. The nurse did not hear him, but his mother did. She turned her tired eyes toward the nurse, then back to her son, and something unreadable passed between them. The nurse's name was Yoon Hae-in. She was known among the staff as the one who never raised her voice, never cut corners, never treated a patient like a task. She carried herself with quiet strength, the kind built through long nights and hard losses. Her beauty was real, but it was not the reason people trusted her. It was her steadiness. Within the first moments, danger and tenderness stood side by side. Kong Min-jae was a man whose name ruled shadows. He controlled a silent empire, one that thrived on obedience and fear. He had survived by never letting emotions slow him down. Yet here he was, standing helpless while another person calmed the woman who had given him life. Hae-in noticed the tension in the room, the expensive suits, the guarded stares, the way staff avoided eye contact. She had learned to read spaces quickly. Hospitals taught that skill well. She did not ask who Kong Min-jae was. She did not need to. She simply nodded once to him, acknowledging his presence, then returned her attention to his mother. That simple act unsettled him more than any threat ever had. Years earlier, Kong Min-jae had learned how power worked. He grew up in a cramped apartment above a closed shop, where winter cold seeped through thin walls, and hunger lived quietly between meals. His father disappeared early, leaving behind debt and silence. His mother worked until her hands cracked, smiling through pain she never spoke about. Min-jae learned fast that kindness did not protect you. Strength did. He watched men with sharp suits and colder eyes collect money his family did not have. He watched his mother bow her head in shame, and something hardened inside him. He promised himself no one would ever make her bow again. That promise shaped his life. By his 20s, Min-jae had learned the language of fear. He understood loyalty bought through pressure. He understood silence enforced through consequence. Each step upward cost him a piece of softness, and he paid without hesitation. He kept his mother far from his world, telling himself it was protection. He sent money, gifts, care. He never sent truth. Now the truth lay breathing weakly in a hospital bed, and his power felt thin and useless. Hae-in adjusted the foreline, her fingers light but sure. She spoke softly to the older woman, encouraging her to rest. Her words were simple, her tone kind. She did not rush. She did not avoid the son watching her closely. Min-jae felt a strange pull in his chest. Hae-in had grown up differently. She had lost her father young to illness that came fast and left little time for goodbyes. She remembered the smell of hospital soap, the way nurses' shoes echoed at night, the feeling of waiting with nothing to do but hope. That was why she chose this work. She believed care was a quiet promise, one you kept even when no one thanked you. She had seen wealthy families crumble and poor ones hold together. She had learned not to judge by appearance. Still, the presence of Min-jae's men made her aware of danger. She sensed power that did not come from kindness, but she did her job anyway. As hours passed, the crisis eased. Doctors left. The room settled into a fragile calm. Min-jae remained seated, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. He watched his mother sleep. He watched Hae-in prepare to leave. Before she stepped out, she paused and reminded him gently to rest as well. The body heals better when the heart slows. Those words stayed with him. Outside the room, his men waited for orders. They expected calls, commands, movement. Instead, Min-jae waved them back. Silence followed him like a shadow. Over the next 2 days, Hae-in continued to care for his mother. She treated her no differently than any other patient. She noticed how Min-jae never left the room, how his eyes followed every movement, how his jaw tightened when doctors spoke. She saw the sun beneath the boss. Other nurses whispered. They knew who he was. They warned Hae-in to be careful. Powerful men brought trouble. Attention invited risk. Hae-in listened but did not change. Care did not bend for fear. That quiet resistance was her strength. Min-jae noticed how staff avoided his gaze, how silence wrapped the hallway when he passed. But Hae-in met his eyes the same way every time. Calm, honest, unmoved. It challenged him. Conflict built not in words, but in presence. The hospital had rules, visiting hours, boundaries. His influence bent many of them. But Hae-in reminded him gently when his mother needed rest. She did not scold. She did not flatter. She simply stood firm. Once, when another nurse hesitated to enter the room because of the men guarding the door, Hae-in walked past without pause and held the door open for her colleague. Min-jae saw it all. He began to realize how much power he had taken from others without noticing. One night, his mother's condition worsened again. Her breathing grew shallow. The room filled with urgency, and fear returned, sharp and cold. Min-jae stood back, heart pounding, as Hae-in and the doctors worked quickly. Her voice stayed steady. Her hands did not shake. She spoke reassurance to the patient even as machines were adjusted. In that moment, Min-jae felt something close to shame. This woman held lives together every day without threats, without money, without fear. Hours later, the danger passed. Min-jae sat down heavily, exhaustion washing over him. Hae-in stepped aside to clean her hands. He followed her into the hall, stopping a respectful distance away. He asked why she stayed so calm. Hae-in answered simply, "Fear makes people careless. Calm saves lives." That sentence struck him deeply. He thought of his own world, built on fear, and wondered how much damage calm could undo. His mother woke briefly that night. She asked for water. Hae-in helped her drink slowly. The older woman's eyes rested on the nurse with trust, then shifted to her son. She raised her hand weakly and touched his cheek. That touch carried years of sacrifice and unspoken worry. Min-jae leaned closer, feeling something crack inside him. Later, when his mother slept again, Min-jae stood alone by the window, city lights glowing below. He made a call that stunned his men. He ordered operations paused, conflicts delayed, pressure eased. They questioned him with their eyes, but not their voices. Something had changed. Over the following days, Min-jae returned to the hospital, not as a ruler, but as a son. He listened more. He spoke less. He watched Hae-in work. He noticed how patients relaxed around her, how families trusted her, how respect followed her without demand. One afternoon, sunlight filled the room as his mother sat up. Stronger now, she watched Hae-in adjust a pillow, then looked at her son with quiet knowing. Min-jae understood what she saw. Not just beauty, a reminder of the life he had stepped away from. When Hae-in stepped out, his mother spoke with effort but clarity. She told him that wanting something good required becoming good enough to deserve it. Those words settled deep. Min-jae did not argue. From that day, his change became real. He ended dealings that fed on fear. He used his influence to protect rather than threaten. Some allies left him, some mocked him. He accepted it. True strength, he learned, did not need applause. Weeks later, his mother was cleared to leave. She walked slowly, leaning on her son's arm. The hospital doors opened to bright daylight. Hae-in stood nearby, watching with a soft smile. Min-jae stopped before leaving. He turned to her, his posture different now, less guarded, more human. He told her, quietly, that he was working to become someone who would not regret her kindness. Hae-in held his gaze. She did not promise anything. She did not turn away. She nodded once. That nod carried possibility. Months passed. Min-jae's world grew quieter, smaller, cleaner. Hae-in continued her work unchanged, steady as ever. When their paths crossed again, it was not in urgency or fear, but in calm. And the man who once ruled through shadow learned that the strongest power of all was the courage to change. If this story moved you, share where you are watching from and what you believe real strength looks like. Share your thoughts on whether people can truly change when faced with quiet goodness. Subscribe for more cinematic stories that honor silent heroes and unseen battles.